The 6th. Eric?
Yeah, but there's 3 ponds.
So that means February 6, 2024, let this meeting of the Tilton Northfield Fire District Budget Committee come to order. I'm going to immediately open the public hearing because I'm glad to see we actually have public. And I will ask if anybody wishes to speak, please say your name clearly. So the clerk and the secretary. All right. All right, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, not going to go through the budget. See that everybody has a copy. Does anybody have questions for the Budget Committee?
Helen Hardenberg, Northfield. Did
Can
you
you
get
hear?
Yes.
Okay.
that? Okay. So I have a very general question. In the town of Northfield, we are raising our town budget by 1.9%. Inflation is around 3% and projected to go down. Why the hell, excuse my language, do we have a budget of 17% being put on the table?
I'll take that one.
Go ahead.
Right. What's happening in this particular year, for the last 3 years, the district has availed itself of a grant to add a 4th firefighter to each shift, and that was for the last 3 years. Now, this year, that grant has expired, so what is going on with the budget is the budget is being asked to support that payroll for that 4th firefighter. Has been successful, it's been useful, there's opinions for and against, but for the last 3 years, that 4th position on each shift has been covered by grant, so that's the big bump, it's payroll. We're not building a building, we're not building trucks, it's payroll, and there's a pay increase that the Budget Committee has voted to try to be competitive in the region, as we were one of the lower paying districts or lower paying fire services in the area. So in a very competitive job market, emergency services being part of that, and maybe even more competitive, the Budget Committee sought to have a pay increase to get to kind of a median number and be in the middle of the pack, knowing that there are surrounding towns that will continue to move their payroll up. So it's the number that we'll be chasing as far as their starting pay. So I think in a general answer, those are the biggest lifts in the budget are payroll related.
There is one more item. You will notice on page 9 that there is now a budget number in there for the hydrants. $165,302. That was added last week.
On page 9.
Yes.
I don't see that.
It's 4332 is the line number.
Sorry?
4332 is the line number.
It's about halfway down.
Okay, found it. That can't come out of general funds?
No, so the commissioners had a figure for the past years, which can come out of the reserve monies, because that debt was incurred in those past years, and they have been saving monies for that. This debt is for 2024, so the money could not have been encumbered, so it will come out of this budget if the legislative body votes for it.
So that's in one of our warrants.
Excuse me?
No, that's wrong.
Yeah.
I guess I'm a little confused by how you said that, and pardon me, I'm new to this, but I just understood you that is going to be out of the warrants.
The budget.
But this is is going into a warrant, so the town has to.
No.
No.
This is part of the budget. It was added to the budget last week.
So if we took it out, how much was the increase?
Well, maybe the chief should speak on it. There's actually a whole court thing that he can talk about that kind of ties our hands. It might make more sense.
Let me get in front so that you can see. So, as you know, it was a long saga with the water district going back 3 years, this being actually the 4th year, where our 5-year agreement expired in, I think, in December 31st of 2020. The commissioners, the fire commissioners and water commissioners met and came to a new agreement, and which was voted on in the 2021 district meeting, and it failed to pass. We were still getting bills from the water district, and at some point, they shut the water off to the fire station and a number of the fire hydrants in the community because we weren't paying the bill. And if you understand how we need fire hydrants where they are, especially in the downtown area, there's a high life hazard and fire hazard there. So we asked the court to make the water district put the fire hydrants back on, and they did. But we still kept getting bills. And so through lawyers back and forth, the water commissioners and the fire commissioners met at a mediation session, I think somewhere about a year and a half ago, and came to a new agreement to fund the fire hydrants portion, and that went to a special district meeting, and that failed. And so there's continued court action until finally we were supposed to go to trial, which would have happened like a week or two ago. But before the trial, we had another mediation session with the water district, mediated by a retired judge, and both commissioners came to an agreement, which no one was happy about, but it was an agreement that both sides agreed to, that allayed that lawsuit and negated the need for a trial to come up with a finding by a jury trial. So the result of that mediation was that we would pay the water district $400,000 in back payments that we owe them, which is significantly less what we actually owe them. So that was a negotiated deal. And then going forward, that we would pay a 75% of what the water district's tariff rate for the fire hydrants are going forward for the next 5 or 7 years. I forget exactly what the agreement says.
It's 7.
7 years. And that was ordered by the judge, so it's a court order. No matter what you say in the fire district meeting, you give us a $0 for a budget, that $165,000 is going to be paid to the water
So
district no
that's
matter
going to
what.
affect us every year for the next 7 years.
That's correct.
Okay, and what have we done to mitigate the problem getting bigger or coming back again?
I don't understand the question.
Well, we were sued over not paying bills, right?
Right.
So there's been a judgment, I get that, okay? We have to pay it now. But is it going to happen again that we're going to come to a point where we're going to get bills for something that we won't pay?
So so we're set for 7 years. This is in concrete for 7 years now. At the end of 7 years, or hopefully before the end of that 7 years, the water commissioners and the fire commissioners will sit down and hammer out a new agreement to continue on after that. But for 7 years, starting this year, it's not going to, they won't have a problem.
So what is the, thank you.
You won't.
So what is the percentage increase that this cost, the $165,000? How did it impact the budget?
Say roughly 0.5%.
Yeah.
It's 160 on the.
So how much did the payroll changes affect the budget?
Payroll from over last year.
Yeah.
I don't have the percent. It's a dollar amount. You could view the dollar. You
Oh, okay, but
Yeah.
I'm.
Percents really don't
Well, 17% increase is a large increase, so I'm trying to understand it in percentages.
Right. We certainly weren't giving 17% raises. I'll say that. If you want to talk about payroll, we're looking at less than 10% of a pay increase.
The overall budget increase over last year is almost $800,000, $799,717 over what you had for 2023.
Thank you for that. So what is that in percentage? I mean, 17%
Well, yeah,
I get, but I'm
if
trying to
it's-
say,
if it's
how,
not,
what's
it's not
payroll
just
difference?
my, before even payroll,
Name, please.
Mark Hubble, Northfield,
Thank
before
you.
even payroll, I mean, I sit on the budget committee in Northfield. If somebody comes to us and says that we, have to pay this, then we're looking where to cut it elsewhere. We're not just adding it on. So where does the $165,000 get cut? But once again, that's only 0.5%, so you're $800,000. 2024 is not going to be easy, as I've been saying, as our Board of Selectmen, it's not going to be easy. We don't even know what school district's up yet, and fire wants to go up 17%.
We don't want to.
Well, you don't have to. Get
Tell
back-
us, tell this committee how we're going to take it out of, can you take it out of payroll? Can you take it out of insurance? Can you take it out of benefits? Can you take it out of social security? You can't, the costs tied to those things are fixed. You can't not have health insurance. You can't not have workers' comp. You can't not have payroll. This committee is honest. Those of you that know me in this room, I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm the cheapest guy in the room that'll vote no on everything. Where do you take it? We actually moved, this past year, moved all the maintenance lines for equipment and vehicles into the equipment purchasing fund. That was something that the Safer Committee had come up with to try to get, because we spent a lot of money on maintaining trucks and maintaining equipment, the rescue gear and all that stuff. Those maintenance expenses were actually pushed into the ambulance charge account where we buy trucks out of to try to mitigate the sting of payroll and increase in just continued costs of
On
insurance.
that, do you have a number for this fund that you're buying an ambulance, a pickup truck, and a fire truck out of? What do you have in that fund right now?
Right now, $1.02 million.
So you have $1 million
Yep.
in there?
That was part of the impetus where the equipment purchasing fund was healthy enough to sustain the long-term capital plan of replacing the trucks and not take away from that, and be able to sustain the maintenance of those trucks and the equipment. And try to get that out of the operating budget, which does affect taxes, where the equipment fund doesn't.
So I guess I'm deferring too on this. I mean, if it's besides the fire hydrants, you're saying the other, of the almost $800,000, the rest of it is payroll?
A lot of it is payroll.
600,000 has to be payroll based on the numbers, what you said, a little bit more.
I'll have it right now.
Yeah, we're not building buildings, there's no big project that's, one big step.
Morris Puzo from Northfield. I'd like to kind of clarify that we're talking percentages here. Is the person here who calculated the percentage, the 17%, is that person here? Because I calculated it, I mean, it's basic math, right?
Right.
Calculating percentage, there's nothing complicated about it. So I took all the numbers and increase in the operating budget, which is in red on page 10, is not 17%. I mean, I can go through the numbers for anyone. It's 32.4%. That's the increase over 2023. I calculated salaries and wages. That's 24% over 2023. Tax increases for Northfield and Tilton, each town, 27.7% increase over 2023. I mean, I don't know who did the percentages, but either they don't know how to calculate percentages, or they're trying to fool the taxpayer, which I don't want to believe that. But those are the real numbers for anyone who wants to know what the increases are. And I can do the math with anyone if they're questioning it.
Did you say 27%?
27.7 tax increase for Tilton and Northfield from what they're asking for taxpayers from the 2023 to the 2024 budget. 32.4% on the operating budget total. 24% in wages, and I'm for increase in wages for the people, but 24%, I mean, I don't even know if the United Auto Workers are getting 24%, I'm not sure.
So the majority of the wages is the absorption of 4 additional personnel into our salary plan, so that takes up quite a bit of that. 4.
One per shift.
1 per shift.
Oh, you have 4 shifts?
We have 4 shifts
Okay, I
and
didn't know
additional
that.
person on each shift.
Okay, I couldn't figure that from the numbers I have here, so I could figure the increase in wages if I knew those figures, but that's not in what I had on the line.
But if you're going from 3 to 4 people, that's 33% increase just in personnel.
Yeah, yep, yeah, so, but it's hard to figure out what the raise is for each person without knowing the separate numbers. I mean, you see what I'm saying, I have one number for wages and salaries, but 23, 24. That's my opinion.
Scott Haskins, Northfield, page 10, the chief's budget is 12% increase. Did the budget committee and the commissioner's budget didn't like the chief's 12%? Is there a reason why you didn't go with the chief's 12%?
Here's the thing about percents.
Well, I'm sorry, it's not the percentage, but his overall budget's lower.
Yeah, if somebody's making $5 an hour, you want to give them a 20% raise, you give them $1 an hour. So percents, we were talking about dollars. So firefighters were looking, they were in the $21 range. And our proposal was to be into the median of anywhere from $23 to $25 an hour starting wage. And looking at the wage study of all the fire departments in the region and places that we've lost staff and places that if somebody's a new firefighter, where they're going to go, where they're going to work, $25 an hour was kind of our target to try to get into the middle of the competitive field. So if you're making $21 an hour, 10% increase is $2, and a 20% increase from 21 to 25 is about $4. So 20%, wow, you give them a 20% increase, it's $4.
I think I just found why it was the hydrants. That's, I just.
Pressurized hydrants is not calculated.
Yeah, I
in the
just,
chief's
I just
budget.
saw that,
That's
thank
a-
you.
that's a big
But
lift.
real quick with the hydrants, we sat in this room a couple of years ago complaining about the hydrants and the cost of flow. And did we ever fight back of getting some kind of information as to we pay as the amount of flow rather than one set income, or is that in court back and forth? Is that not even a discussion to have?
I think
Probably one of the-
that's a fire commissioner
Okay,
question.
all right, so I remember we were discussing that
Yeah.
at one time, and that would have saved.
The original history,
Bucks.
probably my first year in the budget, when the budget committee formed, 15 plus years ago, that was a thing, the water district at the time was charging a per hydrant fee.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it was determined that all the hydrants weren't all created equal. So then the water commissioners immediately bundled it into a system and said, oh, it's not per hydrant. They voted it as now you're paying for this whole entire system, whether they good, bad, or ugly, and
So we're still stuck with that?
as a
Stuck
collect
with what?
with the flow.
Yeah.
And they've added, for a number of years, the water district has added hydrants, but not increased a per hydrant fee. They've grown the system and they've improved the system. And I'm no fan of the water district, but I see what they've improved upon. And I think over 15 years that we've paid, or as many years as we've paid, we've put a couple $1 million into their budget as far as paying us $120,000, $110,000, $120,000, $125,000, $130,000 a year. We've given them over $2 million. And for me personally, as one person on this committee, there has to be a time when that's enough. But
Remember also that the budget committee was not involved in any of those negotiations.
That's right.
Any of those conversations. So we learned about it when you guys did about a week ago.
Go ahead.
Stephanie Giovannucci. Are you guys at full staff? So
Yes.
with these 4 people that were added by the grant, you're completely at full staff, so you're not hiring this year?
We're at full staff currently, unless somebody decides to leave. Then we have to hire
Okay. And second question, the whole 7-year negotiation thing with the hydrants, is that part of how we started implementing the dry hydrants so that maybe we could get away from the water district?
So the dry hydrants are like a
Or
separate
the
program.
cistern thing?
Cisterns and dry hydrants are a way for us to get a water source not in the fire hydrant district.
Okay,
It's not to replace the fire hydrant district.
okay,
It's so like if you live on the outskirts or outside of the hydrant district and there's a fire where we need water, we want to have areas where we can go right away and get water that's somewhat close to a fire. So we're kind of spreading them out, and we're putting more in as we go, as locations become available.
so maybe that's something within this next 7 years, we can start looking at another water source besides the water district, because obviously,
Well, we're doing that now. I don't think we'll ever get rid of the water district, though.
yeah,
Because the fire flow required, if we were to have a fire in, say, the downtown, any of the downtown area,
right,
is way more than what a cistern or a dry hydrant can supply.
okay,
You can't beat a pressurized water source for firefighting.
okay.
So, Helen Hardenberg, okay. I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
I'm
but,
Jason.
Hi, Jason. I'm Helen.
All right.
Okay. So, I want to take a little bit of an exception to your comment earlier that you're dealing in numbers and not percentages. Because if I look at it, I don't see $1 or $2 increase. I mean, I see hundreds of thousands of dollars. But as a taxpayer, I'm obviously concerned about the percentage it's going to impact me in taxes. I'm not, so 25%, let's just take it as 25% or 13% or whatever percentage you want. I'm sitting here in the back of my brain as a taxpayer trying to justify my taxes going up that much in a single year. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at when I'm looking at percentages.
Right.
So when I see the increase going on, it's not a small increase. It's a large increase. It will have a large impact. And I am a retired person who has to survive in this community for the next 20 or 30 years, because I expect to live that long.
Right. I totally agree with you, and I too am on a fixed income because I work for the state. I have a job, and I know the word fixed income happens to all of us, and everything goes up. Whether the grocery store, the gas pump, everything around us is going up. And I dare say, I know this is an expensive budget, but I believe we're getting quality for what we're spending. And if it's $3 per thousand of our valuation, if we're going from $2 to $3 or $3 to $4, that's a big percent increase. Dollar-wise, it's not enormous. But we have, this committee has fought very hard to look and try to figure out where it can come out. Now, during the grant phase of having the staffing, adding that extra firefighter per shift, in order to get that grant money to support that fourth position, one of the requirements was that you had to replace, if somebody was out, you had to replace that with overtime. Now, I'm not the chief, I don't manage the department, I'm not a fire commissioner at this time, I don't manage the operation, I don't advise in the operation, but I would hope that there's a way that going forward, you may not always need it 4 per shift. If somebody calls out, you have to replace it with overtime, because you're not bound to the grant. Can you run the shift on 3? Certain shifts, certain days a week, can you look for those opportunities? Do you have to replace it? When we have the grant, it is absolutely required to go get that grant money. So there's things going forward that I would ask the fire commissioners, whoever they are, or I would ask the chief, are there opportunities going forward where we could look for those savings and try to give it back on the other end? Because
Completely appreciate that, but we've already paid the money then, already, because you're proposing.
it's raised and appropriated, and if it's not used, it lapses to the unassigned fund balance, and then if the unassigned fund balance, we use it to support warrant articles, or we could use it to return it back to the taxpayers, reduce the tax rate. And that's one of the things we've been hoping for and asking for, but if you can spend under the budget, the money can go back. It can be moved to the unassigned fund balance.
Let's remember, there's a proposed budget that at the district meeting, the legislative body has an opportunity to reduce it, increase it, but reduce it as they wish, as they feel necessary. It's a bottom line budget, so you can just cut money off the bottom line and not worry about the middle and the commissioners will have to figure out how to pay the rest. Go ahead.
Mark Hubble, Northfield again. I just want to point out that we're talking numbers, I know you're like in percents, but 2021 to 2022, just under 300,000 increase. 2022 to 2023, about a $300,000 increase. $700,000 increase this year. That's crazy. It's insane. And Chief, that's outstanding that you are fully staffed. You're the only one in any town around that is fully staffed. So I guess the pay isn't that bad, okay? Because I'm gonna tell you too, pay is also not what's gonna keep people. You could pay them $30 an hour, they could still leave. Better benefits, better time, better park lounger, whatever it is, they could leave, okay, and they do. All right, but if you are fully staffed, that is outstanding. I don't think that $700,000, or what did you say it was, Mo, 24% increase in their salaries is gonna do one bit to keep them here, any more than they already are. I mean, that's great. You're fully staffed, I'm gonna congratulate you, because most places are not, so.
Just jump in, most of the areas around us are fully staffed now. I think there's only one opening in Belmont, maybe one in Gilmington, but for the most part, the area is really contracting now as far as staffing goes. And the market, at least in the Lakes region, we're one of the better places in the state right now for staffing. You go down into Seacoast, you go down into Dairy, they're actually the places that are struggling the most. So, and I'll expand a little bit more on my thoughts on the pay increase. And it was tough because a couple years ago, it was $17 an hour is what the starting pay was, when around us was 23, 25. And now we're bumping the needle to 25. We're finding out that there are departments locally, like within 15 minutes of here, that are upping it to 30. So if we were still at 21 and they're at 30, it's a very tough, complex problem. And personally, I'm more in favor of, and I know this community doesn't support it, of like, hey, let's do 5% this year, we'll give you 5% next year to kind of step it up, but that would require like an MOU or something like that, where it's not really super feasible unless we're willing to take a couple other steps. So unfortunately, I don't know how we bridge the gap and keep them here, because retention is definitely going to be a problem regionally, especially with all these other places skyrocketing their pay.
That's what they do. You're gonna go up, they're gonna go up, and you're gonna go up, they're gonna go up. You know, it's until the people say enough, it's not gonna stop. Chief, how many full-timers do you have, if I don't mind asking?
Full-time line personnel, the guys are 16, and then there's the deputy and myself, are full-time as well.
18. That's all I have.
So, if I may have a comment? So, in 2023, so last year, the 4 Safer employees, if you owned a house in Tilton that cost $350,000, cost you $94.50 on your taxes. If you lived in Northfield, it cost you $63 for those 4 employees on your taxes. That's one of the things I was able to figure out. But
Don't forget, we're paying more for the dispatch, so.
The other thing that's important with respect to personnel is the quality of the personnel that we have. We have, is it 5 paramedics now?
7 now.
7 paramedics. How many does Franklin have?
2.
2. We have,
Why?
why do you have paramedics?
Why do you have 7?
Because you have quality employees who want to improve themselves to support the community. You should be thankful we have 7. That means that if you make a call to the fire district, you're going to get a paramedic there at your house for a medical call.
20 minutes.
Excuse me?
Which in about 20 minutes, which if I'm having a heart attack, isn't going to help.
Would you rather have a
I could get to the hospital.
firefighter who is not advanced life support rated, who doesn't know how to run the equipment?
But why do we have 7 paramedics? That's.
What do you want to do? Do you want to say, okay, you've reached firefighter 2, advanced EMT, and if you want to become a paramedic, then too bad, you got to go somewhere else?
No, absolutely not, but geez, I mean, you have 2 ambulances?
Yes.
And that was actually one, you have income.
Yes. We have income every year. We're currently collecting about $570,000 a year in income from the ambulance, which is only about 1/3 of what we bill.
What percentage of our calls are EMS as opposed to fire? That's another important thing.
Yes, 70% of our call volumes EMS in nature. So that's really what we do, is we do EMS and we have the fires and the accidents and stuff like that. But
Which is why we have 7.
Do we have any more questions specific to the budget?
What did the budget committee say no to?
Well, there was a lot of discussion, and a lot of the decisions weren't majority decisions, so that's an interesting
No,
question.
the question is, what did you say no? Nothing, you approved it all.
no, they didn't.
No?
What did they say no to?
An upgrade to a radio system, adding additional receivers and microwave link, they said no to, which was like around 30,000 or so.
30,000 out of 3.5 million.
There was also reductions in some of the other lines like fuel, but they're small reductions comparatively. I mean, when you're operating a fire department, 90% of your budget is your personnel. The rest of it is, buying, toilet paper and materials and things like that you need to work every day. Office supplies, things like that. Gasoline for the vehicles. You run a quality organization. It's 85 to 90% of your costs are your employees.
This is more of a line item issue and
Could you
not.
state your name, please?
Rick Sheldon,
Okay, thank you.
you say you've got a full employee staff. Your staffing is full,
The career side is full, yes.
but you're asking for $100,000 more for overtime. Shouldn't that be going down if you're fully staffed?
So if you're fully staffed and you're replacing, you're awarding a pay raise. So when you have overtime, that's going to go up as well.
But it's $100,000 more, according to your line item.
I don't have that in front of me.
Last year was 275, and this year it's 380 that you're recommending. Good chunk for overtime, even if you do have an increased salary. I guess I'm just
So that
wondering.
also includes all the training that we have ongoing training to keep the firefighters proficient in all the things that we do. And there's a lot of stuff that we do that's very dangerous that we have to practice a lot. And I have to pay them extra to do it because while they're working, they can't do the training because they're too busy. So I have to bring them in off duty to train, to do swift water training or high angle training or confined space training or trench.
So that's not covered under the training budget?
Well, tuition fees for, like, if we have to bring an instructor, that would be in the training budget, but the money I paid these guys to actually do the training comes out of the overtime budget. And if we don't train, those are perishable skills, and they're very dangerous operations. If we can't train and maintain our proficiency in those skills, I don't want to do it, because I'm going to kill somebody, or somebody will get killed doing it. So, and then imagine what the expenses are then. So it's more efficient and more, even though it costs a little bit more to train your employees, it saves you money in the long run by not having to pay for injuries or something worse.
I don't think anybody would want you not to have to train. I just think that if you get too many people, I mean, I think your fire department's getting too big. For the towns that haven't gotten bigger population, but you haven't taken on any more square miles, and your budget is about to outdo the town of Northfield's entire budget.
So I can tell you that our call volumes have gone up significantly in the last 10 years that I've been here. And the biggest thing here is the population, the median population age is going up. it's not getting younger. For some reason, we're losing all the young folks that grow up there. They grow up and they graduate high school and they move away, they don't stay. So our population's getting older. The older you get, the more likely you are going to need our services. That's what, and 51% of my call volume last year was doing two things at the same time, two calls at the same time. And if it's a fire, you're sending, who thinks it's a good idea to send two guys to a fire? But that's what we do. It's because what we have to do.
Has anybody, I mean, I know, I've known cities and places and towns that have actually gone private sector paramedics. Has anybody considered even checking that out to see what that would
I
cost?
can tell you I have. Because, so I look at the town of Meredith, similar size, a little bit smaller.
A lot more tax revenue.
But they have lake revenue for sure. But they have a private EMS service that charges them $386,000 last year for the service. They also, the town does not get the revenue for all the transports that they do. So if we were to pay, if you could get somebody to come in here and do it private ambulance-wise, you would have to pay them to do it, and then you would lose the revenue. So say it costs, because we're a little busier than Meredith, say it would cost you $400,000 if you could get one ambulance 24 hours a day, paramedic, $400,000. That's on the cheap side. Then you lose the almost $600,000 in revenue. That's a $1 million shift that you're going to cost you either in lost revenue or in expenses. And if you do cut the fire department staffing down because you're not running EMS, then you're not going to be as efficient at firefighting operations. And that's not to say that you may not have the availability, but they're only going to bring you one ambulance, and that one ambulance is going to be busy. What are you going to do then? Right now, we can run 2 EMS calls at one time, most of the time.
My name is Karen Sheldon from Northfield, and I know you talked earlier about, somebody asked a question about reappropriating funds from the special reserve funds to offset this budget. Did I sleep through that or what? But
Well,
my question is, could you do that? Because you have Article 4, 5, and 6 that are raising, or spending a lot of money, proposed spending a lot of money, and it's coming out of those funds. So my question is, could you reappropriate that money from the funds to offset this budget?
those funds are only for specific purposes.
Somebody
And they're
said
not
the
for
bottom line of the
wages.
budget was-
They're not for wages, they're not for hydrants, they're for basically supplies for the ambulances. We can buy vehicles with them. And Chief, I believe we can now do repairs with them?
Yep.
Well, you have 2 ambulances, and you're proposing to spend $560,000 for a new ambulance. You couldn't offset that budget with some of those funds? No?
The new ambulance is being purchased out of that reserve.
Right.
It
4,
doesn't-
5, and 6 are all purchased out of the revenue fund when the ambulance charges go. So 4, 5, and 6 do not impact the tax rate by $1 or 1%.
No, they don't. I saw that it does not raise the taxes, but my question is, could you take those funds and reappropriate them to offset some of the budget that they're asking for? The 24%?
No, because those funds are only for very specific purposes per RSA. The legislative body voted to create it for specific purposes, and they can't be used for, like I said, they can't be used to pay salaries. They can't be used for,
Did say you had $1 million in your general fund.
No,
no, the million is the ambulance fund, is it not?
that's correct.
What do you have in your general?
Well, when you're talking about the general fund, are you talking about the surplus from last
Oh, the
year?
unreserved fund balance? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
All I have is last year's unreserved. The auditors were in this week, so I don't know what the unreserved fund balance is today. But last year it was.
And I do know the commissioners mentioned they were going to use unreserved fund balance to pay the fire district for the past years of expense that they've been billing.
$156,000 $533 was last year's unreserved fund balance.
Well, there's, yeah, are you talking about the unassigned fund balances?
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
The leftover monies.
Pardon?
It's the leftover monies, if you will.
Well, in the Safer Committee, we did float the idea of taking the ambulance revenue and putting that into salaries to reduce the tax burden, and it was overwhelmingly by the community told that they wanted that to still be in equipment, the specific thing that we voted on years ago. So that was floated, it was talked about, it just wasn't, it wasn't sustainable, predictable enough to make people feel comfortable that there'd be enough to cover it without drawing that fund down to.
Any other budget questions?
One budget question
You go
on
ahead.
page, sorry, I lost it. On page 5, the Shed Road Communications Tower is going up by 40 grand. Over last year's appropriation.
I have that answer.
Go ahead, Chief.
So we got a grant to improve some of the infrastructure there, so we're being reimbursed for that. So it's up, it's appropriated, and then we spend it, then we get reimbursed by the state.
So you expect to be reimbursed this year for that?
We already, we're in the process of getting reimbursement for it right now.
Okay, so that's basically 40 grand that's actually not in the budget.
It has to be in
It
the
is,
budget
but-
because you have to,
But you don't have the offsetting grant, do you?
yes, we do. I was awarded the grant, so the money's coming back.
So that's what this is on page 1.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
I do have I have a suggestion. As Morris suggested, the percentages are off. If you could refigure the percentages and list them so all of the taxpayers can see the correct percentages.
We will ask whoever does that in the Commissioner's office does that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Budget question? Anything?
Are you making any money from Mark again, Northfield, are you making any money from the Park Street Communications Tower from AT&T?
Yes, we collect,
$5,195, I think, a month, or real close to that.
5,000, just
A little over
5,000.
5,000.
well, that was last year because there was a back payment.
No. Oh, yes, that's right. It's
So
1,500.
monthly, we're collecting, I think, somewhere around $1,600 or $1,700 a month we're collecting for that.
That's hugely different than the 5,000.
Because
Oh, sorry. That was
we
last year.
they didn't pay us for a year, they had a year in arrears, so we got a lump sum check of like $30-something thousand for last year, and a few months from this year, and then continuing on with the $1,500 or $1,600 a month going forward. That's why.
And is that just the AT&T portion, or what about the tower portion itself?
The tower is taxed by the town of Northfield, so they get revenue from the tower.
Right.
But the AT&T pays the fire district rent for,
On the tower.
on the tower.
But aren't you getting another amount for the tower itself, or there's...
So the rent from AT&T is included with the tower rent, and it's 15 something. If another tenant goes up, like a Verizon or T-Mobile goes up, our monthly rent will go up. So AT&T actually pays the tower owner. The tower owner pays us, and we have a deal, I should say, a contract.
My last comment, and I will be, I don't know how much longer you guys have, but to before you put this out, but the towns just can't afford it. If you want it to get passed, you're gonna have to go back through, because otherwise, you're right, you're gonna do it at town meeting, and it's gonna get slashed, and then you don't know where it's gonna get slashed. So I would strongly urge everybody to I know, I'm sure you guys have worked hard, no doubt there, but it's just too much. You can't, $700,000, you can't, not now. I mean, really, so, do what you guys can. I appreciate what you are trying. I know it's not easy, but, so,
Mark, let me ask you, what do you think is the right size fire department, given the 2,200 calls a year? What do you think is, your gut-
22.
you run a business, so what do you think is an appropriate
20.
size department?
2,200 calls, that's all? A
It's
year?
one of the largest.
A year?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, because I was a police officer that had a 98,000 calls for service a year, so I'm sorry, the 2,000 didn't sound, in fact, I think in like some small towns, the police department has 5,000 calls for service a year.
Okay, so with your 98,000, how many people were on that staff?
In
In that town where you worked, in 98,000?
there were 100 officers.
Okay.
Okay, but once again, as you know, with most departments, from the top to the bottom, there's a lot of what we call spam ham, okay? There's a lot of that. So actually, officers on the street, on a shift, 12, tops, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Okay? But, so I'm sorry, I'm not trying to, but I thought you had a lot more calls for service, so, and I thought, the ambulance, you said a lot of those are ambulance calls. So, 14 firefighters for,
So when you're a police officer, because I know my son was a police officer for quite a while, and I have a lot of police officer friends, I know when you handle incident, it can take anywhere from just several minutes to a couple hours. It depends if you have to wait for the NE and stuff like that, you get tied up. Every one of our EMS calls takes about 2 hours, taking 2 guys away because of all the, that's not even counting the paperwork. Paperwork is ridiculous, as you might know. And if you don't write it down, you didn't do it, and we have to make sure that we document everything meticulously to make sure that we are not liable for anything.
that's why I was questioning earlier, with the EMS, when if you really go back and forth with it, would it be easier to go to a private company? I mean, the big cities, some big cities, I think Manchester is, right? I think Manchester is.
Manchester and Nashua use AMR for their EMS services.
Which somebody must have said at some point it's cheaper.
I think, I don't know how they got to their point there, but I know how we are here. I know where I was before. Most municipalities ran their own ambulance service because when you look at it, it's about the quality of service that you can provide the citizens. And we provide a very good quality EMS service. Whereas you have private EMS, talk about rotation of personnel is ridiculous. They're trying to maintain their personnel. And most private EMS personnel, because I know I worked in it myself, is a stepping stone to municipal EMS service. So you don't have the experience in the private EMS for the most part. There are some people that stay on a long time, but for the most part, you're getting somebody with less than 1 year, 1 year, 2 years, and then they're gone doing your EMS service. And what we want to do here, what I think the residents we want, is good quality, experienced EMS people taking care of them when they're in trouble.
I'm sure that you probably have certain locations that are repetitive for your EMS. Would that be an accurate statement? You have certain locations.
Yes.
And that would be constant calls.
Yes.
Multiple calls.
We have some places that do have multiple calls. Yes.
I mean, that's. It was, yeah, it's not just individuals, but businesses or stuff, that, and even out of towners. I mean, people come, you get crashes, 90s, right at the interstate and the off ramps. I mean, it's, my point to that was, and it really isn't, because you do charge, but they don't pay. Is that your?
We charge everybody, and
some of them just don't.
If they have insurance, depending upon what type of insurance they have, some insurances pay us, some insurance will pay the patient, and then the patient doesn't pay us.
And you have 7 paramedics, but not all. Some of those are crossovers. They're firefighter paramedics.
Everybody on the Tilton Northfield Fire District Fire Department, full-time people, are trained both in firefighting and EMS. So we don't have just firefighters and just paramedics.
No,
everybody has to do everything.
So what was your 7 paramedics? That's 7 paramedics that are
spread throughout the department.
Throughout the week, is that what you're, I mean?
So we have 4 shifts of
Yeah.
4 people. So that's the 16 people that are on the line that are doing the work every day. So there's only 4 people on at a time. And every shift has at least 1 paramedic on it, and some shifts have 2.
He said, thank you, oh, I'm sure you're trying, I know, but it's just 700,000 is, I mean, it is, and I don't think the quality, we've tried it in Northfield, we keep on bumping it up. And other towns keep on doing the same, so it's a never-ending story. So, thank you.
Any other
I
questions?
just had that, I know it's minor, but it's more from my understanding. You're moving a lot of line items over to this apparatus and equipment replacement fund based on the warrant article from last year. Unfortunately, I was there last year and I don't remember the warrant article. But it's a lot of little money, and I don't understand why all of these items, it's an operating budget on these operating items. Why were they moved out? Because the funds get hidden then.
So the equipment and apparatus fund was originally designed to support the equipment, to replace equipment. And we've been doing a very good job of keeping our equipment updated. And one of the benefits to that is that the equipment and apparatus fund becomes higher value. So last year, what we suggested was maintenance is part of the ownership of equipment. And that's what you're seeing there is mostly the equipment maintenance line items have been transferred to the equipment and apparatus fund.
So what happens when that fund runs out of money?
That fund is,
So they
The
don't have
capital-
money to use for those
the capital
purposes?
improvement plan right now has it.
I'm just asking.
It won't run out of, unless we stop running the ambulance, it won't run out of money. I've been managing that fund for 10 years, and we've never come close to running out of money.
It's generating over 600,000 a year right now.
They don't overspend it.
That's what the budget's for, right? Thank you.
I appreciate, having that fund and having the ability to manage it, and I take it very seriously. I will never put that fund in harm's way. I will always make sure we operate in a manner that makes sure that we have always a good surplus in there, because, I know some folks want to maybe use it for something else, and I want to make sure that we're able to do it, but still maintain the level of services and buying the gear and equipment and apparatus and vehicles that we need. And it not cost the taxpayers, it doesn't hit the tax rate at all.
I just want to make a note that in this room, we have 16 Northfield residents. So we care about where our money goes. There's 2 from Tilton. So we're gonna, I'm hoping we're gonna come in full force, at meetings, because we understand it's tough to run a budget, but we're very knowledgeable on, hopefully, they get something squared away.
Oh, I get it, Scott. Being from Tilton for a number of years, we're paying 70% of that budget. So everybody talks about, oh, it's this big increase. Well, it's been on the backs of Tilton much more than it has for Northfield, and it's still that way. And whether it's 70% or 60% or whatever the split's going to be, Northfield's paying the smaller share and has all the equipment, has access to all the equipment, all the staff, all the trucks, all the training, all the paramedics. And Northfield's getting a smoking deal, because there's been times, and I've had that mindset of myself, when some people come into this room or any room and go, you know what, the budget's too much, let's split the district. That's when Northfield comes out with the torches and the pitchforks, because Northfield doesn't want to split the district, because Tilton pays more of it than Northfield.
What I've heard.
Northfield says, we can do it better ourselves, we can do it, blah, blah, blah. We want to split the district and have that whole conversation and do that math. Everything gets sold, and then Northfield has to start from scratch, or Tilton has to start from scratch and go buy trucks and go get buildings and go get people and all that. Then you're going to have 2 chiefs and 2 the meet in the middle and two, you want to duplicate everything. We have a great partnership with Tilton and Northfield. I think Northfield's getting a great deal because they're paying a smaller share and getting the full benefit. Everything they're at.
Isn't Tilton bigger? It's got a bigger population.
It doesn't. The populations are identical. They're very similar.
Northfield
Except
has
for voting
about-
time. Northfield's huge.
Chief, let's answer that one. I mentioned that one on the selectmen's meeting 2 years ago. We're 65% of the calls.
65% of the calls are,
We're Tilton on our meeting. So you're paying 70% of the budget, you get 65% of the calls.
And that's why,
the population of Tilton is 1,000 less than the population of Northfield.
Right, but you got more calls.
Well, we get all the extra 20 seasonal traffic, but in an accident here on their way to
You also have
Latonia.
commercial income for Tilton. A lot of commercial income.
Well, I'll tell you, my tax bill in the last
commercial
valuation,
income costs
my
us
residential bill went up because all the commercial stuff got a break. So I don't want to go down that road on
One
valuation.
quick budget thing. Do you need a new ambulance? Do you need a new pickup truck? Do you need a new fire truck right now?
We don't need a new fire truck. We need a new pickup, and we have to order the ambulance
Mike,
because
2 years.
it takes 2.5 years for it to come, and the one that we have that's,
but could you, so all the money from your ambulance income goes into that fund?
yes.
Well, if you've got the equipment, okay, or if you didn't need this, can't you stop that and put it into your general fund so you can use it towards?
No, without, we'd have to change the purpose of that fund at the district meeting.
And you couldn't change the purpose to do that, for that fund. The RSA's only allowed.
I'm not talking about the fund, I'm talking about stop putting money into it from the ambulance.
No.
No.
Right there, I mean,
You couldn't put that monies into the general fund right now,
thank you.
unless you eliminated the fund. Anybody else questions for the budget? No. Sean, you had your hand up.
No, it was answered.
All right, anybody else? There's going to be a commissioner meeting following this, so I'll make sure everybody has their questions for us before we leave. All right, going once, going twice. I got to thank you all for coming. This is awesome
It's a good
that you're
turnout.
here.
One of the best.
So thank you.
Thank you for being patient with us.
Oh, of course, this is your budget. This is ours.
We've been making sure from on the board of selectmen, making sure to let everybody know that their tax bill is not just by us.
That's a hard thing.
It's by the county, it's by the fire district, it's by the school district.
And the
So,
county.
you know, you gotta let everybody know so they can get involved, because otherwise we'll hear it all the time, you know.
Just remember, it is a bottom line budget. You can do whatever you wish with it. So study it before district meeting. All right, thank you all for coming. I'm going to close the public hearing for the budget. And I don't know if we have any other business, budget committee.
If anybody has any particular questions, I'm happy to answer questions at any time. Just give me a call at the office or send me an email.
Motion to adjourn.
The warrants will be next.
All those in favor of the motion to please signify by
Oh,
saying
do they know that?
So they're doing more.
They're doing warrant articles, Bill.